Hello fellow Clashers, I'm KairosTime and welcome to the first episode of Fix My Deck, where you post it, I play it, and then I fix it. Hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for jumping onto this video, guys. This is a unique video that I'm just testing out, just putting it out. I want to know what you guys think about it, so make sure you let me know in the comment section below. If this is the kind of stuff that you like to watch and you want to come back to, please let me know. If it's not and you prefer other stuff, also please let me know. So here are the rules for this. In the comment section below of this video, you go ahead and you post your deck. You include the meta that you're planning on playing that deck in, so like whether it's a ladder deck or a tournament deck or a 2v2 deck, make sure you let me know what that is. If it is going to be a ladder deck, make sure you tell me the trophy range. And if you think that card levels are important, like you have specific cards that are over leveled, then please put those down there as well. If you have a name for the deck, please let me know the deck name, and if there are any struggles that you feel like you want me to try and address, make sure you comment and put that in there as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at maybe 4 or 5, we'll see how many decks I'm going to choose from. I'm going to select from some of these decks. If you want to see me try and fix a specific deck or make a specific deck better, then make sure you upvote other people's comments so that I can see them easily and more easily. Now, one thing that is important I wanted to make sure that you know is that I want to try and get a good range of a lot of different types of decks. So different metas definitely are important. And then also an important factor is that it can be a deck that you think is absolutely amazing, and it can be a deck that you're just like, I have this idea and I want to put it out there, I want to try and make it work, but I haven't been able to make it work out. Either way, you put the deck in there and I'll pick some of my favorites and maybe some of the most popular ones that you guys upvote, and so we can get that. Make sure you put in there #FixMyDeck. Let's go ahead and get started. So because this is the first of the series, I went ahead and asked people in my Discord server to post their decks in there. If you haven't joined the Discord server, make sure you do. There's a link in the description. And this was a deck that was suggested by Benzo Boss. He made this deck for the ladder, specifically Arena 10, around 304 or 3,400 trophies. It's a Lava Loon beatdown deck, and the very first thing that I noticed about this deck when I take a look at it is the massive amount of legendary cards that are in here for a ladder deck. Now, Benzo Boss is not a maxed player, like I'm not even close to being maxed, but even then there are a lot of maxed players that don't have legendaries maxed out, and so legendary cards are actually not very competitive against that. So I understand that he wants to play Lava Loon, so we're going to leave that Lava Hound in his deck. But that Electro Wizard and that Night Witch, I don't think are going to be very competitive for this. Now, there sometimes can be situations where the Electro Wizard would be competitive, but what I prefer to do is if I'm building a deck and I feel like it does need a legendary in there, I just choose one to focus on, so that if that one does show up in the shop, I can drop the 40,000 or the 40,000 gold and get that leveled up. My second rule when it comes to building a legendary or a meta or a ladder deck is to make sure that there's only one epic in the deck. Now, he's only got one epic, he's only got one legendary. If we go ahead and switch out that Electro Wizard and that Night Witch for something else, so I think that that's going to be just fine. Now, as far as replacing these, there's another concern that I have when it comes to this Lava Loon deck, and that is the fact that it really is going to struggle against fast ground threats, or even just ground threats in general. That Night Witch and that Electro Wizard are gonna really struggle, or this deck really is gonna struggle because it's a primarily air deck. It's gonna struggle against some ground threats, so things like, you know, giants or hog riders or even miners. It might do okay against some miner decks, but you kind of get the idea. So what I want to do first of all is I want to make sure and replace the Night Witch with something that's going to do a better job at dealing with those ground threats, and even possibly like elite barbarians. So the first change that I'm going to suggest is actually switching out the Night Witch for the Tombstone and the Electro Wizard for the Skeleton Army. You like that? Super fancy effects, right? That is going to be my very first switch right there. In fact, the first time that I messed around with this, I actually didn't choose the Skeleton Army. I selected the Ice Spirit, but after playing around with things a little bit, I feel like the Skeleton Army works a little bit better in this deck. So we've taken care of the fact that there are too many legendaries in here. We've taken care of the fact that there's not enough ground defense in here. And that's one reason this Tombstone and the Skeleton Army is going to do a lot of different things. That Tombstone is going to help to try and pull tanks to the middle of the arena. So that's really helpful. It's also going to be a really strong defense against Hog Riders. Now, it's not going to deal with the Hog Riders alone, but it is going to be a huge help. Most likely they're going to have Zap or Log or something to get rid of those skeletons, but you've got backups here. You've got the minions, you have the Goblin Gang, so you're not gonna worry about that too much. So overall, I think this deck is pretty good. I took a look at this. You can see some replays going on in the background. I've got the next thing that I considered when it came to looking at this was Zap versus arrows, because I like the fact that he's got arrows in here because that's going to help him deal with some minions and things like that. But which is the best call? I went ahead and took a look at statsroyale.com. I singled out the search results specifically for usage rates in Arena 10 and found out that Minion Horde and minions are used a lot more than bats are in the current meta. As such, I think the arrows definitely are the better option. But I want you to know that I did consider switching that. The next question is, well, which going to be the better option, minions or bats, to include in this deck? He does have the minions in here, but I went and took a look into it. The highest used card in Arena 10 right now is Zap. Second was Skeleton Army, interestingly enough. Especially because Skeleton Army is not really using a lot of the rest of the arena, but that is an important thing to take a look at. Because Zap is highly used, I don't want to use the bats. I want to use the minions, because then the minions are still going to be able to get some good value, and if you can get them to zap your minions, you might still be able to get some value, and then you would also have that Skeleton Army or that Goblin Gang ready to do some work there. So I think that keeping those minions in there instead of switching out with the bats definitely is the best call for this type of situation. Wardrobe change! Okay, so next deck it was deck submitted by Ali Danger. This is a 2v2 deck. Ali hasn't been playing the ladder too much, but Ali really does enjoy this 2v2. So this is a deck that Ali submitted, and this is a solid deck. It really is a solid deck. I tried it out in a lot of 2v2 matches. I really like how balanced it is and everything, but there's just one card that seems to not quite synergize really well with the current deck. The card works really well with other decks in 2v2. This is the Baby Dragon. The Baby Dragon does a really great job at supporting other cards and things like that, but the Baby Dragon doesn't quite feel the best for this deck. And so really the main card that I wanted to just switch out was just the Baby Dragon for the minions. I feel like the minions they're easier to level up as well. They're going to fit better in that 2v2 where card levels actually matter, and then it's going to fit well with this deck, but then it's also going to fit well with other decks. But overall, really great deck submitted by Ali. Solid defense, has a really great synergy within this deck, and there's a lot of great cards in here that synergize with your teammates deck, and it's a pretty well balanced deck. So I wanted to show that to you guys. Up next, we have a P.E.K.K.A. Graveyard deck that was submitted by Najavaturis. Hope I said that right there. And this is a P.E.K.K.A. Graveyard deck. Now, this is a tournament deck that he made specifically for tournaments. And there's one really big problem card in this deck, and that is the Graveyard. The Graveyard really is just not the greatest win condition in the game right now. It's really struggled since it was nerfed. Now, my theory, my best guess is that Supercell's going to give it some type of a buff, because it's pretty clear to me that it's just underwhelming at the moment. That's my best guess though, and I don't know that. That's just a guess that I have. By the time I post this video, there's a chance Supercell might already put the balance changes. But if Graveyard is going to get a buff, we've got an option there, and we also have some options that I put into the deck if you really want to focus on playing P.E.K.K.A. Graveyard. But if not, I actually recommend just making one switch, and that is from Graveyard to the Miner. Now, if you do want to focus on playing P.E.K.K.A. Graveyard, then I think there's some couple different options here. First of all, I really feel like there are just too many spells in this deck. You've got the Log, you've got the Poison, you've got the Tornado, and I understand that the Tornado is most likely being used against like Hog Riders and Miners, but I think there are some better counters for that. And the problem with having so many spells in your deck is spells slow down the tempo of the match, and there's nothing that a spell can do to help build up a future push. It's not like the Electro Wizard where you put it down on defense and it walks across the bridge and offers value on offense. Spells are like one shot. You got defense or you got offense, and that's it. And so really what I feel like the best decision is, and then the next issue that I really felt like this deck had was the fact that it's just so elixir heavy. P.E.K.K.A. itself is elixir heavy, and then Graveyard is also really expensive with the Executioner, so I feel like you need to switch out the Executioner. And so switching out the Executioner with the Ice Golem is going to really help with decreasing that overall elixir cost, but then without that executioner, there's not really a big need for the tornado. So I feel like switching the tornado out for the goblin gang, which is also another great card at defending against hog riders and even the miner as well, that's going to fit that spot that the tornado was in there for, while overall decreasing the total elixir cost of this deck and increasing the versatility of the deck. I think that this is going to be a really great deck. I messed around with it, at least if the graveyard does get some type of love. I think I did mess around with it quite a bit, and I don't think that this deck is quite up to snuff when it comes to tournament, with graveyard being as difficult as it is. If that's the case, you can switch that out definitely for the miner for a really awesome tournament deck. But thanks again for submitting that deck, Ninja Veritas. The next deck we're going to be taking a look at is a Miner Spellbait deck that has that Executioner Tornado in here. This was submitted by Nitro95. You might actually recognize his name if you do read some posts on CRA or Clash Royale Arena.com. He's got some really great stuff on there, and this is a deck that he's been climbing the ladder with. He's reached up to 4,700 trophies in the last season fairly easily with it. He does have a level 3 Princess and a level 2 Miner. Now that being said, I think that his Princess and his Miner, those are two cards that are fairly good even when they're a little underleveled as legendaries. So I feel okay with leaving those in there, and there's also the log in there. And I feel okay with that. But the Executioner in there with that Tornado, I feel like that's just a little bit too much. My biggest concern with this deck, there's two concerns that I have, and that's Three Musketeer decks, which you don't see a ton of. In the ladder right now, at least about 400 or 4,000 trophies. So that's not the biggest concern. So I guess three concerns is, so the Three Musketeers, heavy beatdown, which you do still see some golems and giants in the meta in the legendary arena. And then you also do see a lot of hogs. Now he does have the Tornado in here to help deal with the hog rider, but that Executioner just really seems to not feel like it has a super great, it just doesn't feel like the best for this deck. And my biggest concern for this deck really is just overall beatdown. If he faces a golem, yes, he can use that Executioner or the Tornado in there, but usually golem users do have some really great options to deal with an Executioner and Tornado combination, like the lightning and such. Now obviously, now my biggest suggestion is going to be switching out that Executioner for the Inferno Tower. Now lightning can still deal with the Inferno Tower, but I still feel like this is going to be a little bit better. It's going to play to the strengths of this deck, and those strengths are the fact that you have that really fast offense, and then you have a stalwart defense where you have that Inferno Tower. I think that's really going to help solidify against beatdown pushes. Then I switched out the Tornado. The Tornado doesn't really feel like the greatest option without the Executioner, and so I put the Knight in there. And the reason why is because this is a really high rarity deck with that with those three legendaries right there. Like I said, I don't think they're a big concern because they do pretty decent when underleveled in the ladder. But I switched the Knight in there. My one concern, my one suggestion, Nitro, when you're looking at this deck, is to consider switching out Fireball for the Knight, just kind of depending on what kind of meta you're seeing. Possibly even some arrows if you really do see some minion horde, which I looked at statsroyale.com, didn't see a whole minion horde as a major threat, but you may have run into some more minions and things like that. Just some things to consider. Maybe even zap. But overall, like I said, Nitro, he knows what he's doing. This is a really solid deck. It's a lot of fun to play around with, and I played a lot of matches with it. And it definitely puts your opponent in some tough spots. There you have it. That is episode 1 of #FixMyDeck. And I want to know if you want me to continue doing these series and help just give some general deck building tips when it comes to building for different metas and things like that. If you do have a specific deck that you want me to take a look at, make sure you put the 8 cards that are in the deck, mention the meta. If it is like the ladder tournament or 2v2 deck, if it is a ladder deck, make sure you specify that trophy range. I will not look at any decks that don't have a trophy range or a meta specified, because I want to know exactly what I'm looking at. If it has a deck name, make sure you include that. And if there are any struggles that you feel like you do have or issues with it you'd like me to take a look at, that'd be fantastic. For now, this is KairosTime ticking by, and we will see you in the arena.